Shalom and welcome to this week's Living Torah. A couple things. First of all, you might notice I've done a little bit of work behind me. I've had this laminate in the downstairs for probably about 6 months, so I am working on it. Still a little bit to be done there, so bear with me as I don't hire carpenters and everything else. I just do it myself. So if it looks that way, there's a reason. All right. Camp Mashiach coming up next month. If you know anyone, any young people that would like to go, I think it's campmashiach.com. If you can't find it, just send me an email. I'll be glad to send you the direct link to that. And I would appreciate your prayers for myself, Steve Motria, a number of others that will be speaking there, leading worship, and just hanging out with these guys for a few days, which I'm really looking forward to. Israel, Connect to Israel tour is, we do have some slots available. So if you or you do know someone that is interested in the not so touristy tour of Israel, connecttoisrael.org. You need to have deposits in. The full payment is due. The balance of that would be due, I think it's sometime July, so there's a little bit of time there to, if somebody needs to save a little bit extra, all right? Lastly, of course, the news right now, which will probably change by the time this is actually released, is that President Trump is in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. At this point, there was, the last I saw, he does not have plans to visit Israel. That could change. Who knows? The good news is that the last American Jew, or Jewish American, I'm going to say that because he was IDF. He, by his own accord, he decided to go and fight, or to be a part of the restoration of Israel, and through that was taken hostage and has been released. Of course, there are still 58 that are being held. Some of them have already been killed. So is it possible that Mr. Trump will be able to orchestrate something here? Possibly. Does this show the as I call the lapdog status of Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu? Well, I'll leave that into people's their own opinion there, but it is probably going to weaken him even more that President Trump was able to get something done that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not. Regarding President Trump, not to make this a political program, I know there are those that believe he is kind of one step from the Messiah. There are others that believe he is the anti-Messiah. There's no real middle ground with a lot of people in this man. But the fact that he is in Qatar, he is in Saudi Arabia, various places, I do not see Mr. Trump as playing chess, three-dimensional chess. I see him as a man who is a chess piece. And the one who is directing everything is in control of him and everyone else around him. Remember that Mr. Trump, I do not see him as the way I describe him is this: he is a businessman. He is not a biblical man. Now, I did not say where his status regarding him and the Creator. I don't know that status. That's above my pay grade. All right, but I do not see him as a man who thinks biblically. He does think business. How that's going to play out, we're just going to have to wait and see. All right, let's get from there to the scriptures, which is really the most important thing. And we're in the Torah portion of Speak, or Emor. And of course, this will be the Torah portion that we see the Moed, the appointed times, the feasts. Now, why is it? I just kind of throw this out, not that I have a real answer, but why is it that we see the middle of the Torah portion and we see the center of the Torah portion regarding the words and the letters or back in, Exodus 11 in that Torah portion, where we have the kosher dietary laws, we have what is clean and unclean, all of these things. I mean, come on now. Isn't Shabbat the center of everything? Aren't the feasts and festivals the center of everything? Well, yeah, I think we can make a pretty good argument for that. But as far as what is in the exact middle of the Torah is what we put into our bodies. It's not about our practices. It's about what is brought into us. And so that kind of goes over into the beginning of this Torah portion, which speaks specifically to the Kohanim, the priests, and it is talking about them making themselves unclean. And I guess I could sum this up the best as the priests were called to live at a higher standard than anyone else in the camp. Okay, so if you're out there and you're one of the 12 tribes and you're just doing your kind of daily thing, it appears there was a standard for you, but then there was the priests and there was a bit of a higher standard for them. Well, if we consider the words of Kepha, of Peter in his writings, he says, you are to be a holy nation. You are to be a royal priesthood. So there's, people want to talk about, well, we're all priests now. Or in that statement, are we willing then to accept the role of living by a higher standard? And what's the higher standard for to begin with? Why is it the priest? Was there really a difference as far as their level? Don't we all come before him as the same? The old adage that the ground at the foot of the execution stake was level. Well, yeah, okay, but there's this thing that keeps coming up, that the priests were called again to a higher standard. Why? To call others to a higher standard. Okay. Anybody that's been around in life for any length of time, if you've been a parent, if you've been, as I have for a lot of years now, a pastor, you understand this thought that people that are looking to you will normally take a little bit lower standard than what you have. So where are you going to put your line? Are you going to put your line kind of on the edge? Like, well, I'm kind of getting by with God, but, not really going to. It's like, well, if God in the end on Yom Kippur, which we'll get to in a little while, if he gives me a C+, I'm okay with that. Well, what if everybody else that's in your flock, and as I taught at Life Assembly this past weekend, that every one of us has a flock. All right, it may be our family. It may be some people that the Father has kind of gathered around you. They may not even be, they may still be outside of the sheep pasture. All right, they may be looking in and looking to you. And so everybody has, in one way or another, a bit of a flock. Now, what if you decide, as the leader of that flock, that you're going for a C+ in life? Well, everybody looks, people look to you and go, well, I could just take a couple steps. Well, what if they get an F? What if they get a failing grade? And they're like, well, I was looking to them for guidance. So the priest has this place in which they're to live by a higher standard. But what is the purpose of this? Is it so that the priests could, make themselves look good in the eyes of everybody else? No. It is in chapter 22, verse 1, Let's go to verse 2. Tell Aaron and the sons to separate themselves from the holy things of the people of Israel, which they set apart as holy for me, so that they will not profane my name. Okay, what is the purpose of our standard? Well, let's go on over to chapter 22 and the last couple of verses here. Verse 31, you're to keep my mitzvot and obey them. I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. You're not to profane my name. On the contrary, I am to be regarded as holy among the people of Israel. I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, who makes you holy, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. So what is the purpose of, what should be our purpose in calling ourselves to a higher standard, or considering that we are called to a higher standard? Is it so that people can look at us and say, well, you got this holier than thou attitude, which I have no idea what that means to begin with. What does that really mean? When somebody looks at you, at me, whatever, and says, well, they just think they're holier than everybody. What does that mean? That basically means that you are doing the job that you're supposed to do, as long as you're doing it with the right attitude. Because if you live a life that is of biblical standard, a life that is of no compromise, then guess what? Not everybody's going to be comfortable around you. You're not going to have friends. As you know, there's going to be people that they don't invite you to places. They don't invite you out to dinner with them. They don't invite you to all these different. You're not one of their crowd. Why? Because you make them uncomfortable. Well, if I'm describing you as a person that, people are uncomfortable around for the right reason. If all if all a person is there for is this kind of a preachy attitude, you really need to say the sinner's prayer with me. You really need to invite Jesus into your heart, because I have my quota for the day that I have to get. I need to click off. I need to check off that I prayed with somebody, received Jesus. If that's the attitude, give it up. All right. But if the attitude is that I'm living my life for a standard, not for you, not for anybody else, but for Him. And I'm living that so that His name will be glorified, that His name will be honored, that I will bring honor to Him. This is the concept that is being spoken of in the 10 words, honor your mother and father, that it may be well with you. All right, why is it that we are to honor them? Well, on this earth, many of us have had parents, a mother, a father, or both, that were not honorable, okay? But we're still called to honor them, no matter what. That's why there's things behind me, kind of my life that's behind me on these shelves that, I think, I was thinking about it yesterday. Well, I could just take my library and I could bring all my books and I could put them behind me and you guys can figure out what I've read in my life. But does that really matter? So it may look cluttered to some people, whatever, but this is my life that is there. And part of that is an honoring of my father, who was not extremely, in fact, and not in any way was he honorable. But I made a decision to honor him. Well, when we take that to a spiritual level, the Father, our Creator, the one who breathes life into us, He is worthy of honor. There is no dishonor in Him. And so when I go somewhere, it is my name. I was with some guys, we were going down to play golf in Clayton. Clayton, Georgia. And one of them said, well, do we get a discount because you're with us? And I'm like, no, but this town was named by my ancestors. They're like, what? I said, yeah, there's 18 towns, I believe it is, in the United States, and they were all founded by a couple of brothers named Clayton. All right, so even though I have really no connection with them, and one of the guys said, does that mean we're going to end up in jail? I don't know. These guys had some shady aspects to them, but it's just when you have the name, you also have all that goes along with that, and we can either be a person that brings honor to our name, or we can be a person that brings dishonor to that name. The same thing with the Almighty. We can bring honor to His name, or dishonor to His name, depending on what our standard of life is. It's appalling to me sometimes. I want to get off this real fast in just a moment. It's appalling to me sometimes, the language that's used as casual by people that are Messianic, Hebrew roots, that are at Sukkot. The language that's used, it's just, to me, there's no place in my life for that. Why? Is it about me? Is it about me, looking better than everyone? No, it's about, I believe that those things dishonor my Father. And so I'm going to try to not allow myself to be a part of something that may dishonor His name. Now, with honoring His name, we get to Leviticus chapter 23. Now, all of us should know what Leviticus 23 is all about. It's the feasts and festivals. But before we read even the very first word, or look at any of the festivals, I want to ask you to consider this. I want to ask you a question. When we turn the page to Leviticus 23, and you're like, oh, this is the feasts and festivals, what is your attitude in approaching this chapter? Is it excitement? Or is it like, well, I've read that before. I'll just go to 24 and move on. With what attitude are we approaching this chapter, which would be a revelation maybe of how we approach the festivals? Remember back to the first days in which you opened Leviticus 23, or somebody told you about what was in Leviticus 23, and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. And this honeymoon period. This, with the festivals, it's like this, this honeymoon, and we're all excited about everything. And then a few years go by, and we still got the marriage to them, right? Are we showing the same excitement? But and I'm not talking about, when we talk about honeymoon and stuff, there's an excitement of the honeymoon, and then there should be a maturing of that excitement throughout marriage. And, we all know, if you've been married for a while, that takes effort. It doesn't just come by default. So I asked this question based upon what I brought out last week of an attitude or protocol of awe, of how I think I worded that, the protocol of awe. Have we lost our awe for the festivals? Because these festivals are tied directly to who He is. All right, we just went through this past Sunday. We went through Mother's Day. All these, people posting pictures of them and their mother, or their thoughts of their mother who's passed away. All of these things, this Mother's Day is one of those kind of emotional times. Well, are we taking even that amount of emotion, of attachment, of awe, and putting it into these festivals? Have they become a little old nature? Or could we go to the place that there are, originally it's like, wow, this is wonderful. And we get this 8-day camping trip in the middle of it, which we call vacation. We're supposed to do some spiritual things while we're there too. And it just becomes, it becomes whatever. If you've been to Sukkot, there are people that are there just because it's kind of what they block off. Some people go to the Grand Canyon. Some people go to their timeshare. Some people just go to Sukkot because that's what they do during that time. So we go from awe to this place of kind of complacency. And then there's the aspect of, but I kind of liked the eggs. I kind of liked the trees. I kind of liked the costumes. I miss the emotional attachment to those things. I guess it would be very similar to the statement of, well, we remember the onions and the garlic and the leeks and the fish. But forget about the stripes that were on your back that someone was tending to because they were not quite healed. Understand that these are his times. This is like, we do in our culture. We have Mother's Day, we have Father's Day, our birthday, Thanksgiving. Of course, then there's the group out there that I kind of disagree with. Well, those are not biblical, so we should not do anything. I don't think there's a problem in honoring, taking a day and honoring your mother. I don't think there's a problem in taking a day to honor your father. Then there's Grandparents' Day. Now, it's like, well, today is Honor Your Poodle Day. Really? This is only for merchandising. So let's be careful of how we allow ourselves to be taken down that road. But at the same time, if there are things that we do to honor those that are upon the earth, should we not put all of our emotion, our energy, whatever we have to give into his festivals, his times? All right, well, that's just something to think about. So with that, let's go through the feasts. First of all is Shabbat. What is Shabbat? Well, it's a day of rest. It's supposed to be. It's a sign of the covenant. Now, you start talking about Shabbat and actually honoring Shabbat, that Shabbat comes before everything else. You may go back to that, well, it said higher standard. I've got things I've got to get done. I've found in life that I can get more done in 6 days than I can in 7. It's just a fact that when we honor him, then he is going to, in turn, honor us. Well, we're in exile. There are difficulties regarding being in exile, being in a godless society, being in a religious society. You and I are not only are we countercultural, we're also counter-religion, religious practices of the day. It's amazing to me that over the last week how these pretty much godless people, all of a sudden the Pope, there is a new Pope, and it's like, they just found this spirituality. Well, don't worry, it'll die away. Let him make one decision that is in line with the keeping of Scripture, and they'll throw him under the Pope mobile's now in Gaza, so they can't do that, but they'll throw him under some kind of bus. So Shabbat is kind of where everything begins. Shabbat's, to me, it's like a reset button. I had a friend of mine recently that said something about they'd gone through some trials, very serious, very difficult trials. In fact, it was at one point considered possibly even life-threatening. and came out the other side of that. And this person said to me, that was like a reset button for their life. Caused them to consider some things. I don't really know all the ramifications of that, but it was like hitting the reset. It's like, with your phone. Your phone's giving you a problem. What do? Well, you either get frustrated with it or you reboot it. Same thing with a computer. You reboot it. So Shabbat to me is kind of like a weekly reboot. Cleans out all the junk. Cleans out some of the corrupted files that are there, the things that have gone on. Reboot. Let's move on to the next week. But the next week's going to have its issues. So what are we going to need to do? We got a 7-day reboot. So every week, it's kind of like rebooting your life, starting it all over. Let's come back to what is important, which is our Creator, which is upholding His name, and let's give this thing another run. So the rest of the festivals come out of that. Of course, Passover, our redemption. Just going to briefly give you a kind of a word here for them, and I do this every year, but I've got some different words this year I'm trying to put in here. So Passover, our redemption. We read the story. We're in the process of this, of I will bring you out of Egypt. I will do all of I will take you in the land. I will give you the land as your inheritance. The redemption is the beginning of the process. It is the restoration to the way that it was in the garden. Are we back in the garden yet? No. But it is the beginning of that restoration of us coming out of the exile called sin and heading back toward what was His original intent, the garden purpose for our life. So Passover is our redemption. Unleavened bread is that time that we are trying to focus on, that there's a lot of things that maybe we were redeemed from, but we brought with us. And so this is this time period of reflection on, maybe, you ever gone on a vacation somewhere and you pack everything? This happens pretty much continually on Connect to Israel tours. People bring too much. I still do it. As many times as I've been there, I still pack too much, and then have to figure out how to, leave something behind or get rid of something so that I've got room for bringing some things back. Well, this is like this time of unleavened bread is like, I didn't really need to put that in the suitcase. There's some things that I should have just left behind because it may have even served some kind of purpose when I was in exile. But now that I'm on this side, this really serves no purpose in my life. If my intent is through the process to uphold and honor His name. Now, first fruits is in the center, usually, in the midst of the time of unleavened bread. And first fruits to me, of course, I believe this is the day of the resurrection of Messiah, Yeshua. But what is that about? That if we've ever tried to clean up, you do this maybe with your house. You decide, well, it's time to do some house cleaning. Somewhere along the way, it's like, maybe I can't clean a carpet. I need to call somebody else and have them come in and do that. I can't clean the vents, the duct work. So I need to call somebody to have them come in and do that. At some point, you need some help in the cleanup process. And so when we go through the time of unleavened bread, there's a point in I just don't have the power that it takes. I don't have the skill set. that it takes to go through this cleaning process. So you call upon a risen Redeemer who empowers you for the process that we are on. We go from there to the counting the Omer. Counting the Omer is a time of anticipation. It's a time that we're anticipating the kingdom. We'll look back at the words of Yeshua, and he spent, go back to the book of Acts. It says he was with them for some 40 days. And what was he talking about? He was not talking about the political situation of Rome. He was not talking about the emperor and all the. What was he talking about? He was talking about, specifically says, he was talking about the kingdom. So this is a time of anticipation about the kingdom, but we're not there yet. What are we really heading toward? Well, in the time of the Hebrews in the wilderness, they didn't understand why they were. I don't think they understood why they were heading to Mount Sinai. Why are we just going to the promised land? Well, in order to get into the land of Canaan, the promises, and stay in there, there's some issues that need to be straightened out, which is we need to start thinking different. We need to start then acting different. And that behavior will be given to us through the giving of the Torah, which will have us, hopefully, the instructions of the Torah will begin to reset our thinking process, which will then reset our doing process. This is why I say, and please keep the context of this, that the Almighty is not really concerned as much with our behavior as he is with our identity. Because our identity drives our behavior. If a person believes they're a drug addict, they will be a drug addict. Whatever you believe, Proverbs says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. That's actually kind of a stretch of the actual translation there, but it does stay within the context, I believe. So as a man thinks in his inward man, which is what? As what I believe I am, I can just stop it right there. What I believe I am is what I will become, and that will in turn drive my behavior. When a person doesn't know who they are, then they will be open, or it will be an opening to accept other people's ideas of what their behavior should be, because they really don't know who they are. This is why it is important for us to get into this word and to figure out who I am in Messiah. Because when I come to the place of understanding who I am in him, then my behavior, Paul said this, follow me as I follow him. What was he saying? I have found my identity in him. And so my behavior is in line with who he is and who I believe I am in him. And so as you follow me, basically do the same thing. As you see me follow him, you can follow me as long as, and I kind of picture it like this, that if we have someone in our life that we believe is upholding a standard of honoring his name, then they're worthy of being followed. Okay? But follow them only when you can see Messiah over their shoulder. As long as I'm following somebody, and It's not a bad thing to have shepherds, to have leaders. But as we follow someone, we should be able to see Messiah on the other side of them as they are following Messiah. Hope that's clear. Shavuot, okay, the new way of life. So our anticipation is getting to this place in which he's going to tell us that there is a new way of life. A slave, going back to the tragic time of slavery in the United States, many slaves remained slaves. They may have gotten the letter. They may have gotten, understood, the emancipation. They've been set free, but then the mental part was still in slavery. You take someone from a different country, bring them to the United States, or take someone from the United States, take them somewhere else. You go there with that mentality. And so in order to fit into the culture, you have to change the, again, identity and mentality that you had in your previous country. This is true when we talk about exile. There are many people today that may have been set free because of the message of Passover, but their life is still one of exile because they have not accepted and taken upon themselves the new way of life based upon, again, Psalm 40, verses 7 and 8, "Behold, I am coming, in the scroll of the book it is written of me." If we're looking into the Torah, which was given on Mount Sinai at the time of Shavuot, if we're looking into the Torah trying to find just a new set of rules, we'll come up with a new set of rules and an identity that is not what the Torah is trying to bring forth. If we look at these rules, regulations, the mitzvot, the commandments, and we're looking unto him, then our identity becomes in him, and we do what, because you love me, keep my commandments, because in the guarding, in the guarding of the commandments, we're going to find out more about who he is, which is going to take us to Yom Teruah, which is about his return, the time of the sounding of the shofars, the transition period, the between this time of exile and the kingdom. So we begin the process go from the process of going from exile, and then we turn to the kingdom, and then we find in the midst of this Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, a day of truth, a day of reckoning. Okay? Yom Kippur, for those who have received the message of the Torah, which is the Messiah, then Yom Kippur is, I love what one person says, it's kind of like a job performance. It's kind of back to what I was talking about originally. When you stand before him, and each one of us will stand before him, that in itself is, worthy of days and days of contemplation. But when we stand before him, if we are found in him, well, it's not over. All right, you may have graduated. I have a friend of mine that was just graduated basic training this past week. So proud of him. Yaakov, you did good. But not only did he graduate from basic training, boot camp, but he was called out, not for a bad way. He was called out as going above and beyond the standard that they were trying to get him to. He was actually given another rank. Instead of graduating and remaining as an E1, he was given the rank of E2, which comes with a little bit of extra pay. In the day that I was a part of that, it was like $10 or $15, but it was more than what I had to begin with. So it's about are we willing to go there on? I need to get back on subject here. Start thinking back too far. On Yom Kippur, we're there. We're in. We have graduated, but it's kind of like when I got my high school diploma. I kind of got. I know they don't have this grade, but I got like an F plus. It would have translated into a D minus minus minus. I got through on the prayers of my mother and the skin of my teeth. I graduated, and right now I can show you my high school diploma. Doesn't have a grade on there. If I don't tell anybody, nobody knows. Were you first in your class or last in your class? Doesn't really matter. I got the certificate. But I know where I graduated in the midst of it. What about that day? When you stand before him, are you going to be like, hey, yeah, C plus, I got it. D plus. He's worthy of A's. He's worthy of us in the power that we have to follow him in such a way that he would say, well done, my good and faithful servant, which is equivalent, I guess, of A plus. Enter into the kingdom. And then, talking about the kingdom, Sukkot. Sukkot, his kingdom in its fullness. That this time that we go through every year with this, the 8 days of Sukkot. Is it really, today, is it done? How will we do Sukkot this year? Will it be another year of focusing on what bad is coming? I've talked about this so many times about Sukkots I've gone to, and everywhere I went, every campsite, every table I sat at, it was the latest conspiracy theories. Well, we need to give back our passport or what, we shouldn't be paying taxes, and it's like, guys, whatever. Can somebody talk about the kingdom here, or are we just going to talk about the bad stuff? Sukkot to me is about talking about where we're going, not dwelling on where we are, and trying to make exile great again. Because the end of the actual time of Sukkot, which I see as the seventh day, the Shabbat, the kingdom, the 1,000-year rule and reign, will then lead to what we've talked about in previous weeks, the 8th day, which is eternity. Wow. Then it goes on from there. The process. We're in the process. And the process is not something that can be lived by default. In chapter 24, it talks about the order of the people of Israel to bring pure olive oil from crushed olives for the light, and that Aaron and his sons are to arrange that oil upon the menorah, and then they are to keep it burning. And the message to us is this, that keeping the light burning takes commitment to the calling that we have been given. All the way back to the first, to chapter 21, this higher standard. You may be able to, for a short amount of time, you may be able to kind of fake that higher standard. Eventually, you're going to fall back to your default mode. Are you happy with default mode? Default mode is, well, yeah, I prayed last Tuesday morning, and yeah, let's see, I read 3 chapters 2 weeks ago. Is that your default? Are you happy with that? Hope not. So we all understand that this living by a higher standard is going to take work. And our calling, like it or not, our calling is to a higher standard. We are to be the people that are honoring his name, bringing honor to his name, showing honor to his name, because he's worthy of that honor. But that's going to cause us, each one of us personally, to have to commit to that calling, commit to that light, commit to the fact that if you don't continue the oil flow into the vessel, eventually the light is going to go out. If you don't trim the wicks, the light is going to go out. If we don't take care of the vessel in which the light is being brought forth from, the light will one day be extinguished. And at that point, what good are we? The menorah sitting in the holy place, not lit, is a decoration. When it is lit, it is an illumination. For you and I, going through this life, if we allow our light to go out, if we do not strive at and work at, and I know those are words that people are like, well, we can't work it. Yes, we should be working at our relationship. And that working at our relationship with him is continuing the process of the oil flowing into our lives, the wicks being trimmed, so that we can show forth his light in this earth. So I guess the question, is our life today, is it a light or is it just a decoration? When the light of the menorah goes out, it's a decoration. Let us be lights that are burning brightly before him. With that, Shavua Tov, wait a minute, let me go backwards, get right online here. I just started thinking about something else again. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem, God willing, see you again next week. Until then, thank you, I got you. Until again, thank you for your prayers regarding Camp Mashiach, other things that are coming up. If you know young people that would benefit for this time, and I think all would, please go to the website. If you know some folks that may be interested in the Connect Israel tour, if you would help us in that, would appreciate it. All right, until next week, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.